As a professional designer and stylist, you depend on your tools to be the best they can be. Hello, my name is Toku Ishizaki. Since the days of the samurai, we at Kasho have been proud to craft the finest steel instrument, respected throughout the world for precision and durability. Thank you for joining us today to learn more about Kasho and why we strive to help you be the best you can be.
Hi, I'm Chris Barron. My career has taken me through an incredible creative journey as a platform artist, as a session stylist on photo and video shoots, and working backstage at Fashion Week. I've won awards and been recognized in the press. I've traveled the world to train hairdressers on every continent. That journey over hundreds of thousands of miles started with the 5 feet behind the chair. If I had to name the one thing that got me to where I am today, it would be quality. Quality in what I do, and just as importantly, in the equipment I use. Never sacrifice the quality of service or quality of your equipment. Taking shortcuts as a way of shortcutting your career. If you want to succeed as a stylist, to really succeed, you want to choose the best quality tools available. That's probably why you're watching this. But how do you choose the right tool for the job? Listen up, as it gives me great pleasure to introduce to you the person who can help you do exactly that. The National Artistic and Education Director for Kashoshears, Leon Vanette.
Thank you, Chris. The right tool for the job. That's something every professional knows. Japanese craftsmen have been mastering steel for over 700 years, dating back to the samurai sword. The finest of these masters worked in Seiki, Japan, still known worldwide as a leader, not only in shears, but also shaving razors, cutlery, sporting knives, and medical implements. And their mastery has been passed down in a direct line to Kasho. Chris, we're all familiar with conventional household scissors. We've used them since we were kids. At the professional level, there's a much higher standard of shear mechanics for creating a successful haircut. We establish this by holding a haircutting shear differently, placing only the end of your thumb and ring finger in the holes. Opening and closing the shear is done solely with the movement of your thumb.
Absolutely. Household scissors aren't good for cutting hair.
They're usually made of poor quality metal that won't hold an edge. They have uneven tension that causes fatigue, and they're one size fits all. Design, strength, and adaptability are what separate excellent from ordinary. Kasho's high-quality haircutting shears are made with state-of-the-art stainless steel alloy. The hollow grind on the blade creates a concave inner surface, and precision honing creates the ultimate edge.
Every stylist's hands are different, and consequently they have different shear needs, don't they?
Well, to accommodate this, different handle configurations, blade lengths, and tension adjusting systems are available.
So how do I choose?
The first thing you need to decide is whether you want a straight or an offset handle. When the Japanese designed their first haircutting shears, both handle arms were the same length, with the blade in the center. We call that a straight shear, and some stylists prefer it. However, others found that it caused the elbow and arm to be in an unnatural raised position while cutting hair. This can lead to arm fatigue and other problems.
That being said, I have several lengths of straight shears that I use all the time. They definitely have their place in the professional toolbox.
That's true. Ultimately, a more ergonomic type of shear known as an offset shear evolved to address these issues. Offset shears have a stationary blade, the one in your ring finger. It stays completely straight from the tip to the tang, or finger rest, so it aligns properly with your hand. By raising the thumb ring up and off to the side, it allows the hand to fit into the shear more comfortably.
Yeah, look at how much more easily that slides right onto my hand.
That's why the offset shear is the most popular handle design used today. When using one, you'll find that it's more comfortable, and at the end of the day, your wrist, elbow, and shoulders are less fatigued.
Exactly. You can see if I put a straight and an offset shear in my hand at the same time, look at the difference in the cutting angle. straight, offset, straight, offset. You know, when I started out, I had one main shear that I used almost all the time.
That's usually the case, so it needs to be comfortable. Length can be a factor. To determine the correct length, look at the two fingers that hold the hair when you're cutting. Normally these are your index finger and middle finger. These two fingers determine the width of the section with which you can work. So let's mark or measure your fingers. Place a mark on your finger above where the webbing connects the two together, and place a mark on the end where your fingers separate or lose tension. Your blade length should be able to cover that surface area. This represents the maximum width of section that you can cut when you comfortably open a shear.
So that'll help determine the length of your main shear. Like many stylists, I use a variety of shears. Short shears work very well for close detailed cutting, whereas long shears are ideal for techniques like scissor over comb and deep point cutting.
Longer blades also work well for perimeter and fringes, where we want to keep our hand farther away from the head. Okay, now that we've covered things we can see, let's go over things you can't, such as strength of steel. This is what sets Kasho apart. Quality should last a lifetime. Long-lasting edge durability is only achieved through super hardened steel.
Just like baking a cake, it's the quality of the ingredients that has the biggest impact on the final result.
Kasho is on the cutting edge, creating the hardest steel used in our industry. We use two hardness grades of steel for our shears, one for the blade and one for the handle. The steel we use in our handle, interestingly, is what some other companies use for their entire shear. It's strong, but it doesn't meet Kasho's unrelenting standards for creating the ultimate edge, in the blades where it counts the most. This technology ensures long life and superb cutting-edge durability, while minimizing edge resistance and limiting hand fatigue. When you work with a shear like this, you'll feel the quality.
You don't even have to push down on the shears. They cut hair like hot knife through butter.
Gone are the days of pushing and folding hair. Our steel is so hard, it makes hair cutting easy. It's like an insurance policy against fatigue, carpal tunnel, and tendinitis.
So you're saying shears with inlaid jewels and spinning rings won't save you?
Precisely. Only a shear with this ultimate edge will. These shears are precision tools and should be cared for as such. So Kasho made upkeep simple.
So let's say I'm a simple kid from Humboldt, Saskatchewan. How do I take care of my Kashoshear?
First, after every haircut, wipe the blades clean with a soft cloth or a chamois. Never use a shampoo towel.
Yeah, in case it's got like nail product or hair color on it.
For sure. That's for everyday cleaning. Periodically, you should also check the tension. And to get the most accurate reading, you'll need an in-depth cleaning.
You don't want to have any hair in there gumming up all the works like while you're trying to check the tension.
So, let's clean and oil the pivot. First, we'll loosen the tensioner. With our shear open and pointed down over a towel, we need to flush the area between the blades and the pivot. Using the new oil stick from Kasho, or even WD-40, force out all the little hair and gunk. You'll see the oil coming out the other side. If it's dirty, keep going until it runs clean. Remember, you don't need this device for cleaning. We're just using it so you can see more clearly.
Now that you've thoroughly cleaned and oiled your shears, let's adjust the tension.
Here we want to hold the shear in a comfortable position, pointing up to the sky without your thumb in the ring. Now take the thumb ring and lift it up to about 10 o'clock and let it drop.
So if it hits the other handle, it's too loose.
Exactly. And if it stops at 8 or 9 o'clock, then it's too tight. If it doesn't even move, loosen it first, then clean and oil it again.
So how do I know when it's right?
Ideally, you want the ring to stop falling with about a finger's width to spare. Just turn the tensioner a little to the right to tighten or to the left to loosen. Remember, righty-tighty, lefty-loosey. We're not winding a clock here, just little increments will do.
It feels great when a shear is tuned up and ready to go.
Maintained properly, a Kasho's ultimate edge will last for years. Now, even with excellent care, any shear, no matter how hard the steel, will need to be sharpened.
Even if the salesman said it never needs to be sharpened?
There's no such thing. If you want true performance out of your tools, we advise that our shear be sharpened every 1 to 3 years, depending upon the series and the amount of use. For the longest shear life, we strongly recommend that they be serviced only by our authorized agents. To find one in your area, just log on to www.kasho-usa.com. All you have to do is follow the directions on the order form and place the shear into the shear mailer.
I just stick them in the mail?
Make sure they're in their shear sleeve or wrapped in something soft, like bubble wrap. Fill out the prepaid UPS return card and attach it to the mailer. After you mail it, it will come back to you as good as new in about 9 business days. Don't be lured into the quickie service by using someone who isn't trained on how to work with such a precision tool as this.
Yeah, you wouldn't take your Mercedes to a lawnmower repairman, would you?
No, Chris, I wouldn't. Kashoshears have been described by top stylists around the world as outperforming, second to none, and unequaled, even simply the best.
With comments like those, you should expect nothing less than outstanding performance.
Remember, you get what you pay for, and you'll pay for what you get.
Invest in your future. Your shears are the single most important investment you'll make in your career. I know it was for me. The holy jumping off point in my career was the day I got the correct shear. And yes, it was a Kasho. My journey over hundreds of thousands of miles started with the 5 feet behind the chair and my first Kasho shear. When purchasing my first car, my dad gave me this advice. He said, "Chris, don't buy a car you're just settling for. You'll hate it later. Buy quality and you'll be proud of it every time you set foot into it." My advice to you is the same. Don't sacrifice when choosing your equipment. You won't regret it.
Most shears cut well the first day. When properly cared for, Kasho shears will last you a lifetime. Choose smart, choose well, choose Kasho. At Kasho, our belief is quality in our product and quality in education. We're so pleased to bring to you not only Redken's Education Artistic Director, but the man I believe to be the world's best educator. Using his own Kasho shears, Chris will demonstrate the profound principles of shear and body mechanics that have made him the success that he is today.
Becoming a thinking hairdresser comes from being an informed one. My good friend Michael Cole is always talking about our industry's thriving 20 versus the surviving 80. Meaning, out of 100% of our industry, 80% are merely surviving. Interesting, isn't it? That the surviving 80 are the majority. They're just squeaking by. They have huge holes in their book. They complain about the lack of work. Often there's too much month left at the end of the money. Yet they spend money they don't have on things they don't need to impress people they don't like. Wow. That means only 20% are thriving. They get clients, they get cars, they get holidays, they get more money. Why? Because they're in charge of their own future. Does that scare you? I hope not, because success is a choice party. You can choose to be one or the other, and it's based on information. The surviving 20 are informed and perpetual students. Their egos are in check, their attitude is the right altitude, and they're constantly curious. My quest for information has always been based on the 4 W's: what, how, why, and when. What do I do? How do I do it? Why does it work? When do I use it? If something works time and time again in every situation, in most circles, it's called a principle. For example, if you elevate or lift hair and cut it, we create layers. You knew that even before I finished the sentence, didn't you? It's obvious. You do it all the time. Some principles are enlightening after someone tells us. I've had 40 years of my mentors telling me some amazing secrets when cutting with shears. Here are a few of my faves. I've listed them the way that the questions always seem to come up in the class. Here's the first one. How do you control the tension on a section of hair? It always seems to be looser on the outsides of the section. Well, the first thing to do is close your hand and hold it up to the light. Now, I was blessed with perfect hair cutting hands, meaning no gaps. Do you see light through the gaps in your fingers? If you have gaps, that's what's causing the variation in tension. You only get tension where the skin surface touches the hair. How do you correct it? Overlap your fingers. Instead of holding your fingers directly over top of one another, slide your index finger slightly toward the top of your middle finger. This works best when you cut on the inside of your hand, and towards the bottom when you cut on the back of your hand. This closes the gap and applies a more even tension on the section. Here's another one that constantly comes up. They'll say to me, someone told me only to cut between my first and second knuckle, so I don't get a curved line when I cut around them. It takes a lot longer. What should I do? Well, here's the easiest way. We have all survived some limited beliefs. A limited belief is something that someone else believes, but isn't always true. And believe me, there's a lot of them out there. There were two that I heard here. The first one is about only cutting between the first and second knuckle. The second is about cutting around your knuckle. Here's where my teachers set me straight. In the previous pro tip, we talked about overlapping your fingers to create an even tension on the hair. There's a second layer behind why we do this. When your fingers are flush, you're forced to cut around your knuckles in order to complete a long cutting line. Notice how this creates a curved line in the design. Watch. Overlap them. Now look at the cutting surface. The shears can cut across a clean, long line. Less work, less time, more money. Because the time we save allows us to take another booking. Here's another one that comes up. I cut my finger all the time. What can I do to correct this? Well, the obvious answer is, then don't do that. Seriously, I notice this a lot in class. People have a tendency to cut without making contact with their fingers. The shears float while they attempt to cut a straight line. I discovered that this comes from people being afraid of the shears. Actually, it's more about the fear of cutting yourself. Now, I don't think anyone gets up in the morning, stretches, and says, well, I just can't wait to get out there and slash my fingers today. I better go get a cup of coffee. This is where proper shear mechanics comes into play and exposes a third layer as to why we overlap our fingers when we cut. The first step is to get comfortable pressing the stationary blade against your finger. Try it. Just press the blade down using a slight bit of pressure and slide the blade in a straight line across the cutting surface that we just opened up. It's actually comforting to know that the blade won't cut you when you do this. Second step is to know that if you only move your thumb, you won't cut your finger when you press and close the blade. The operative word here is if you only move your thumb. As a disclaimer, do not attempt this until you become well versed in this skill set. Watch. Even if the shears are pointed in toward my hand, I can open and close the blade, and as long as I only move the cutting blade, I won't cut myself. Now, we're to the point where we're actually cutting a section of hair. The three words that will help you are open, feed, close. Here's how it goes. Open the shears, press them against your finger. Feed the hair onto them and close the cutting blade onto the stationary one. Open the blade, move it forward. Notice how pressing the shear down allows us to slide the stationary blade under the hair. Close the cutting blade. Keep repeating these 3 steps and stop at the webbing of your fingers. Open, feed, close. Open, feed, close. This discipline works if you cut on the top of your hand as well. Here's another one that I see a lot in classes, but it comes up a lot as well. When I cut, both blades move. I notice when others cut, they only move one and it looks cool. As much as I've tried, I can't get the hang of it. My blades always have a quacking motion. I agree, it does look cool. Most things do when they're done correctly. And I also agree that once you have a bad habit, it's difficult to change. I have a solution for you. And if you do what I tell you to do, I promise you'll be integrating it and you won't even notice. One day, you'll be behind the chair doing it correctly and you won't even remember when the shift happens. Before we start, a few important things to know. There's a reason only one or both blades move. The shear has 2 blades, stationary. Some call it a guiding blade. The other is a cutting blade. The thumb controls the cutting blade. The ring finger controls the stationary. If you only want the cutting blade to move, you only move your thumb. Easier said than done. To understand how to work this correctly, first, a little biology lesson on the way the thumb works. Do this with me. Hold out your hand, no shears yet. Open and close your thumb with your thumb moving towards your ring finger. Notice how the whole hand moves. Okay, now let's talk about how the thumb moves naturally. Sideways, in a waving motion. Hold your hand up again and wave it at me, side to side, wave. Go ahead, hi. Yeah, good chance someone's watching you and laughing, but do it anyway. They'll want to do it too to find out what the heck we're talking about. Hi. Notice that when you move your thumb in a natural movement, your other fingers don't move. Simple? The other piece in the puzzle is what we call the range of the shears. I also call this how you wear your shears. Do you wear them forward on your hand or back? Do you jam your thumb into the thumb rest, or do you do what the name implies? Rest your thumb on it. I don't know about you, but I was taught to wear my shears forward on my hand, which brought my body too close to my work. To be comfortable, I had to rotate my hand. Unfortunately, it puts the cutting blade at the bottom, so when I closed the shears, it would move the section. Once I understood the forward and back range of the shears, I discovered that wearing the shears back in my hand allowed my body to be further back from my work. It's a whole lot more comfortable. Okay, lots of information there, so let's review. The shears have 2 blades, stationary or guiding, and cutting. The thumb controls the cutting blade. The thumb moves naturally side to side. Our shears have a range of motion, and how we wear them affects our body position. Here's a simple exercise that I alluded to that'll have you looking like a pro when you cut. It's a 3-step process and will only take a little bit of your time, 15 minutes a day. First step, using the edge of a table or corner of the wall, lightly rest your fingers on the top of the table. Keep your eye on the guiding blade so that it always follows the straight line of the table. Now flip your hand so it's on the bottom of the table and repeat the procedure going across the opposite way. By the way, any gum you find is yours to keep. Do this for 15 minutes a day for 7 days. Second step, do exactly the same thing without the table. Line the guiding blade up with a fine line on the horizon and cut in one direction. Then flip your hand and do the same thing in the opposite way. Concentrate on keeping the line straight. Again, 15 minutes a day for the next 7 days. The third is to do the same exercise in a figure 8. Stay focused on the exercise. You know the pattern, 15 minutes for 7 days. Earlier, we said you can't quit a habit, but you can certainly replace it. That's what we're doing. Most people will tell you it takes 21 days to replace a habit. We just did.
We hope you've enjoyed this Kasho presentation and found the information to be helpful. When you choose to purchase a quality of Kashoshears with the ultimate edge, you are making an investment in your future. Remember, the right tool for the job. That's something every professional knows.